What happens when billionaires trade private jets and mega mansions for prison cells? From icy Alcatraz to daring helicopter escapes, these infamous inmates went from untouchable to behind bars in the world's most secure prisons. You won't believe the secret scandals, shocking falls from grace, and jaw-dropping stories behind these daring escapes. Trust me, the last two will blow your mind, and one almost changed history. Number 1. ADX Florence. Let's kick things off with ADX Florence, nicknamed the Alcatraz of the Rockies. This supermax prison in Florence, Colorado, is the most inescapable fortress ever built, and it's where the world's most dangerous billionaires are sent to disappear. Life here is designed to break the human spirit. Imagine spending 23 hours a day in a soundproof, concrete cell so isolating you can hear your own heartbeat. For the one remaining hour, inmates are let into a concrete pit the size of an empty swimming pool, but only on good behavior. Even then, they're handcuffed. Security is next level. Cameras, motion sensors, pressure pads, and remotely controlled doors. It's like a billionaire's worst nightmare, except there's no escape. Just ask Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, the infamous drug lord who once ran the world's largest narcotics empire and escaped 2 Mexican prisons, one via a $2.5 million shower tunnel. But at ADX Florence, he's not going anywhere. The amenities? Minimal. Inmates get a bed, desk, stool, and maybe a radio or TV, if they behave. The TVs play limited programs, so don't expect any binge-worthy shows. Phone calls? 4 per month. 15 minutes max. Visitation? Almost non-existent. El Chapo, who's responsible for over 30,000 known deaths, is joined by Richard Reed, the infamous shoe bomber who tried to blow up a plane with explosives hidden in his footwear. Caught in 2001, Reed's failed attempt landed him in ADX Florence, where his future is as bleak as the walls around him. ADX Florence isn't just a prison, it's a vault for society's most dangerous. If you think ADX Florence is intense, wait until you hear about the prison where a wife learned to fly a helicopter for a daring escape. Number 2. La Santé Prison. Welcome to La Santé in France, a fortress-like prison with a history of infamous inmates and mind-blowing escapes. Built in the late 1800s, its cells are so cramped and claustrophobic, they've been described as a psychological torture chamber. But here's where things get wild. In 1986, Michel Vaugeur's wife, Nadine, pulled off one of the boldest prison escapes ever recorded. She learned to fly a helicopter, landed it in the prison courtyard, and whisked her husband to freedom. Sounds like a scene straight out of a movie, right? It worked, until they were recaptured months later. La Santé's history is filled with drama. Executions once took place here regularly, and while escapes were rare, 3 successful breakouts made headlines. From forged documents to scaling the prison walls, every attempt came with incredible risks. Among its notorious inmates are Francesc Macià, Spain's 122nd president, and Ahmed Ben Bella and Mohamed Boudiaf, former presidents of Algeria. These individuals were seen as threats to national security, making La Santé their inevitable destination. Still, it's not a place you'd ever want to visit, unless you're arriving in a helicopter. Next, we're heading to sunny Florida, where billionaires swap designer suits for prison uniforms. And speaking of escapes, why not break out of indecision and hit that subscribe button? It's way easier than flying a helicopter. Next at number 3, Coleman II. In sunny Florida, about 50 miles from Orlando, sits Coleman II, a high-security prison where life couldn't be further from billionaire luxury. Razor wire, towering fences, and guards watching 24/7 keep its notorious inmates locked tight. Life here is anything but luxurious. Inmates follow a rigid schedule. Wake-up calls, meal times, and lock-ins are all set to the clock. Head counts happen multiple times a day, with extra checks on weekends and holidays. Tobacco? Forget it! The facility is smoke-free and inmates are restricted to prison uniform and 3 pairs of shoes, shower slippers, safety shoes, and tennis shoes. It's a stark contrast to the life of private jets and bespoke suits they once knew. One inmate here is Allen Stanford, once a Caribbean jet-setter who hosted luxury cricket matches. His $7 billion Ponzi scheme landed him a 110-year sentence. Today, his high-flying lifestyle has been replaced by prison uniform and rigid schedules. Even his shoes are government-issued: shower slippers, safety shoes, and tennis shoes. A far cry from private jets, wouldn't you agree? And Stanford isn't alone. Coleman II also houses other high-profile inmates, including those involved in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing plot. These walls hold secrets of some of the most infamous criminals, making Coleman II a fortress of fallen giants. But if you thought Florida prisons were intense, wait until we head to an island so infamous it inspired Hollywood. Number 4. Alcatraz. Alcatraz, nicknamed The Rock, was the ultimate maximum security prison. Surrounded by freezing, shark-infested waters, escape was practically impossible. Inside, conditions were brutal. Inmates lived under constant surveillance, and overcrowded cells often led to violent altercations. It wasn't uncommon to hear stories of prisoners turning on each other just to survive the harsh environment. This was no ordinary prison. It was a nightmare brought to life. Among its infamous residents was Al Capone, the legendary mob boss who once ruled Chicago's underworld. Known as Scarface, Capone was a master of racketeering and bootlegging. Despite his criminal empire, he managed to manipulate the media into portraying him as a benevolent businessman. But his image shattered after the Valentine's Day massacre of 1929, where men posing as police officers gunned down rival gang members in cold blood. While Capone was never arrested for the massacre, he was eventually jailed for tax evasion and transferred to Alcatraz after causing trouble in other prisons. Here, stripped of his power, Capone's health deteriorated due to syphilis, and he spent his days scrubbing floors. He was a shadow of his former self by the time of his release, dying shortly after. But Alcatraz's greatest mystery remains the 1962 escape attempt. 3 inmates left behind dummy heads to fool guards and vanished into the icy waters. Did they drown or did they make it? To this day, no one knows. Though Alcatraz is no longer in operation and now serves as a museum, its legacy as an impenetrable fortress remains. Alcatraz may be closed, but the next prison is very much open, and it's where a tech mogul traded his $32 billion empire for a steel bunk. At 5, Federal Correctional Institution, Mendota. Sam Bankman-Fried, the disgraced crypto billionaire, once controlled FTX, a $32 billion empire. Today, he's at Mendota Federal Prison, swapping private jets for prison meals and khaki uniforms. Sam Bankman-Fried's downfall began in 2022 when his fraud unraveled fast, with billions of investor dollars funneled into his private empire. After fleeing to the Bahamas, he was extradited and charged with wire fraud. Now, instead of yachts and penthouses, his days are filled with steel bunks and bland prison meals. A fall from grace, wouldn't you say? And the other inmates? They're certainly not lining up to hear his thoughts on Bitcoin. From a $32 billion empire to a cold steel cell, Sam Bankman-Fried's story is a cautionary tale of how fast fortunes can turn. From crypto kings to Wall Street tycoons, our next stop is a prison where billionaires face long-term medical care under constant watch. Number 6. Federal Medical Center Prison. FMC in Ayer, Massachusetts isn't just a prison. It's where wealthy inmates and medical needs are sent under strict surveillance. But don't let its clinical name fool you. This is no luxury retreat. The clientele includes everyone from white-collar criminals to notorious mobsters, and among its most infamous residents was hedge fund billionaire Raj Rajaratnam. Rajaratnam, a Sri Lankan-born financier, founded the Galleon Group in late 1990s, managing over $7 billion in assets at its peak. But his empire wasn't built on savvy investing alone. Rajaratnam orchestrated one of the largest insider trading schemes in Wall Street history, using illegally obtained tips to rake in $64 million in profits. For years, he operated on the edge, leveraging juicy insider gossip to gain an unfair advantage. His downfall began in 2008 when the SEC caught wind of his shady activities. After nearly 2,000 wiretaps and a thorough investigation, Rajaratnam was arrested in 2009. The scandal rocked Wall Street, and in 2011, he was convicted on 14 counts of fraud and conspiracy. Sentenced to 11 years, he was sent to FMC Ayer, where his time served became a stark reminder that even billionaires can't cheat the system forever. By 2019, after serving 7.5 years, Rajaratnam was granted early release under the First Step Act, which offers reduced sentences to non-violent offenders over 60. While he may be free now, his story remains one of Wall Street's most notorious cautionary tales. But if you think his fall was bad, wait until we head to Texas to meet a once revered tech entrepreneur now serving time. And 7. Federal Prison Camp Brian. Elizabeth Holmes, once celebrated as Silicon Valley's youngest self-made female billionaire, is now an inmate at Federal Prison Camp Brian. Her company, Theranos, promised to revolutionize medicine but became one of the biggest frauds in history. At just 19 years old, Holmes founded Theranos, a company she claimed would revolutionize medical testing. By 2014, at age 30, she was worth $4.5 billion and Theranos was valued at a staggering $9 billion. Her promise? A groundbreaking technology that could diagnose hundreds of diseases with just a single drop of blood. Investors flocked to her vision, drawn in by her commanding voice, sharp intellect, and signature black turtlenecks. Holmes and her business partner and ex-boyfriend, Sunny Balwani, were charged with fraud and conspiracy for deliberately misleading investors, doctors, and patients. Holmes tried to shift the blame onto Balwani, but the courts weren't convinced. Today, she wears khaki uniforms instead of black turtlenecks and spends her days on rigid prison schedules. A far cry from Forbes covers, wouldn't you agree? And there you have it, proof that not even billionaires can save you from the consequences of your actions. So, which story blew your mind? Let us know in the comments below. Watch our next video for more crazy dives into the world's elite.